Good evening and welcome to the 2024 League of Women Voters of Falmouth Candidates Night. I'm Janet Lauer, Steering Committee Chair of the League of Women Voters of Falmouth. On behalf of the League of Women of Falmouth, I would like to express my appreciation to the candidates for participating and for the watching audience for coming tonight. Thanks to FCTV, this event is being broadcast live tonight on Public Channel 6 in Falmouth and the Roku and Apple TV channels, and will be rebroadcast several times in the days leading up to Election Day, May 21st. You can check FCTV's broadcast schedule on their website at fctv.org and in the Falmouth Enterprise. Heartfelt kudos to the dedicated members of the Falmouth Voter Service Committee, ably led by Felicia Bordick, who have worked so hard to make this event a reality. A few words about the League. We're a nonpartisan political organization of women and men. We're nonpartisan because we never support a candidate or party. We're partisan to the extent that we do take positions on public policy issues, but only after studying the facts, discussing them, and forming a group consensus. We work to encourage active participation in government and to increase understanding of major public policy issues and to influence public policy through education and advocacy. Diversity, equity, and inclusion policy. The League of Women Voters is an organization fully committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion in principle and practice. DEI are central to the organization's current and future success in engaging all individuals, households, communities, and policymakers in creating a more perfect democracy. Voting is one kind of active participation in government. We hope that the information provided by the candidates this evening will help you to cast an informed vote on May 21st. It is now my pleasure and honor to introduce our moderator, Mindy Todd, Managing Director of Editorial WCAI 90.1, the Point host and producer. Thank you, Mindy.
Welcome. Go over the rules a little bit. Our candidates will have 90 seconds to answer the questions and 90 seconds for closing statements. Our timekeepers are right here in the front, and they're going to show when you see the 15 seconds, you know you're almost out of time. When you see that time, finish your sentence, or I have to get the hook. You don't want the hook. The questions have been put together by the League. We do have some audience questions that will also sprinkle in as many as we have time for. First, we're going to have select board candidates, so if you guys want to come up and have a seat behind your names there. And our select board candidates are Heather Goldstone, Thomas Zine, and Richard Doobie. I think we've got you seating there alphabetically. Make sure I didn't forget anything. Okay. All right. Everybody ready? Need a deep breath?
Absolutely.
All right. We're going to start we'll start in alphabetical order, and we'll change who answers first so everybody gets an equal opportunity. We'll start with you, Richard. Please detail contributions you believe you can make in your position on the select board and how you approach situations where others you are working with disagree with you.
Well, all of my career has been spent in an entrepreneurial fashion. And as such, I have had the responsibility of organizing and maintaining a group communication. I think it's integral for the select board. I think it's integral for the members of the community in town to know that. One of my positions that I've taken is that I feel that the select board, as it now functions, does not really function as a cooperative body. I've seen too many examples of individual personalities being inserted into the select board and debate from the select board taking a centrifugal force effect. Everybody goes to a wall. It's not a productive method of doing it. It's not a method that I've ever used. I am collaborative, even though I'm entrepreneurial. You can't be a successful entrepreneur unless you are collaborative. I think that one of the main characteristics that I could bring to the select board is just that. I am extremely good at working with groups. Thank you.
Thank you. Heather, do you need the question again? Or do I go?
Sure.
Okay. Please detail contributions you believe you can make in your position on the select board and how you approach situations where others you are working with disagree with you.
Right. So I'm running for select board to work for Falmouth's future. I keep hearing from people around town that we are off course. We are facing multiple crises: affordable housing, water quality, coastal resiliency. These are problems we've been facing for decades, and they are big, thorny problems. And in facing big, thorny problems that we've been facing for decades, what we need is a combination of vision, holding long-term vision, really being creative and curious to try to find solutions, be in real conversation, and then take action that is aligned to that long-term vision in an urgent way. And I think I've got a skill set and a perspective to bring to that work. So I am a full-time working mother of 3 children in Falmouth Public Schools. That is a perspective that is not currently represented on our select board. It is a perspective that informs everything that I do. I come face to face with Falmouth Future every single morning before I've even gotten dressed, and it holds me accountable in all of the decisions that I make. I have a PhD from our very own Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, and I spent over a decade as a science and environment reporter at CAI. So I have a background of knowledge, of research skills, and then I know how to ask the questions that can open up conversations and move issues forward, find opportunities, find gaps, find connections, and find common ground. And that's the skill set that I really hope to bring to the select board and to the issues that we're facing. Thanks.
Thank you. Tom, do you need the question again, or you? Or
No, I'm good, thank you. Thank you to the League of Women Voters. Thank you, Mindy. Thank you to our audience for being here in FCTV. So I'm just going to get right into my goals. This is how I've already met with probably hundreds of people throughout this process the last 4 months. And I'm just going to tackle our goals, what I think are important. We need to talk about aquifer, protecting our water, public safety. We need a new police station. Housing, it's critical. We need it. We need to continue working for the right solutions. Infrastructure, we need more sewering and coastal resiliency. We need to protect our beaches. I do lead by example. I've established thousands of relationships my time in Falmouth over the last 45 years. And that's through coaching, being on multiple boards, and I'm going to continue leading by example, and because I know how to lead and I know how to collaborate. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Heather, we'll start with you this time. How can we adequately prepare to interact with diverse populations who are increasingly coming to our community to interact and work?
Well, that's a great question. I got a similar question at an event last week, and I'll say something similar, which is it's a thousand tiny things. It is constantly questioning our own assumptions. It is being curious about others and their perspectives, and it's about holding ourselves accountable. I think one important step forward would be having full-time staff on board. We are working on having a DEI coordinator, and I think that's an important step, in particular in that holding all of us accountable. And I'll give you one example of a small thing that we could do here in Falmouth to make our community more inclusive for those already here. And that's to think about our calendar and when we hold town events and who that includes and excludes in important discussions and decision-making processes. Right, our calendar already builds in that we don't have major events on Christian observances. We could think about the other religions, faiths, and cultures represented in our community and also not hold important decisions and discussions when there are major cultural and religious observations. We could think about language access at public events and in our important discussions. As I said, there are a lot of different ways we can do this, and it's a constant process of questioning where we are and how we can do better.
Thank you. Tom?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. How can we adequately prepare to interact with diverse populations who are increasingly coming to our community to interact and work?
Okay, so this is what I learned from my parents. They always said, listen, walk a mile in my shoes. So I say that to everybody out here. Walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. It's about perspective. It's about somebody else's point of view. And once you can do that, true solutions will happen. Thank you.
Richard?
I'm afraid I take a more basic approach than, excuse me, than either Heather or Tom do. It was a cold slap in the face when I sat at the select board and I heard the objections to the Emerald project, many of which were valid objections to the project, but one of which absolutely baffled me, and that was they were concerned about crime because of the position of the playground in the project. I'm trying to figure that out. Are we expecting the inhabitants of this project to be criminals, or are we expecting somehow a playground to attract criminals from other localities? It's very strange to me that we're going to invest $500,000 in a skate park, which I think is wonderful. Nobody can see it, but nobody is concerned about crime in the skate park. And I have to say, I raised 2 sons. They are grown men now, in their 50s, but they came through the skating community. The skating community was always an outlaw community, always. And there were always drugs present in that community. So for us to say that a community of well-meaning citizens are going to be subject to crime because of the location of a playground, but our skate park, which nobody can see, is absolutely fine and worth $500,000. We need to shift the entire paradigm of how we view others in this town.
Thank you. Thomas, we're going to start with you this time. What are the most promising options the Select Board should consider in order to meet Falmouth's future energy needs and to ensure our water is safe for consumption?
Thank you for that question. I think it starts with testing our water. Water quality is important. We need to fund that. I know that was an issue that came up. And can you repeat the question one more time?
What are the most promising options the Select Board should consider in order to meet Falmouth's future energy needs and to ensure water is safe for consumption?
And the energy needs. So we need to continue working on reducing our carbon footprint. And that's done locally. That's done, and we're doing it right now. We are recycling our plastic bottles, biofuels. There are companies that are no longer using regular fuels. They're using like canola type oil. Electric vehicles is another example, and stretch codes. We're currently assessing 80 of our buildings in town, and stretch codes are energy codes through the building department. And I get a class every 2 years on this, and I think that's important to take that into consideration. And I think we need to add energy audits to that as well. And I think that will help reducing our carbon footprint. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard?
It's a hot button question, and a lot of people won't be happy once again with what I'm about to say, but it's going to require a shift in the way we view certain things. When they attempted to drill the test holes in Falmouth Heights, we shut it down. There was no reason to shut it down, in my opinion. It was simply 4-foot test holes. Let's see if it's viable. Wind power is going to be the future. You can't deny it. Whenever we talk about energy, we have to remember that there are winners and losers. There are no cases where everybody wins, or hopefully no cases where everybody loses. As far as water in this town, the wastewater treatment plant that we have in this town, which is close to state-of-the-art right now, I don't know how many people here know, that's staffed by 8 people. We're going to be losing 3 of them this year. Nobody knows anything about it. That plant is going to be in dire, dire straits when those 3 people leave. And right now, we're not talking about it. So I think some of the things that we have to do is look at alternative energy, wind energy, make sure that our water treatment plant is fully staffed and fully operational. Thank you.
Thank you. Heather?
Well, I want to belatedly say thank you to the League of Women Voters for having us here, Mindy for moderating, and to everyone for being here. And then I want to point out another great resource. We have so many institutions in our town helping candidates get their views and experiences out there. The Falmouth Climate Action Network reached out to the three of us and offered 3 questions relating to climate action, not surprisingly, which will be in the Enterprise this week that expounds on some of what I'm about to share. But in terms of our energy options, I would say 2 things. I mean, overarchingly, we have to be moving toward low and no carbon energy sources as quickly as possible. Not by some date in the future, as quickly as possible, starting yesterday. One of the most viable and available to us is rooftop solar and solar panel installations on already hardened surfaces. So that's solar canopies and that sort of thing, right? Not going for unfortunate trade-offs between things like trees and solar panels. So looking at options to install solar panels wherever we can, and the work of our sustainability coordinator, Stephanie Madsen, is moving us in that direction. And then, yes, we have to consider offshore wind. It's a critical option for our region, and we have to find ways to make it work for the grid and for our community. And when it comes to water, we need to really take an aggressive all-of-the-above approach to protecting our precious ponds and bays. And that means finding the right technologies for the right places.
Thank you. We're going to move on to some audience questions now, and Richard, we'll start with you this time. Could you tell me something you did not do well, and what did you learn from it, and can it be applied to your work on the Select Board?
Absolutely not. Something I didn't do well and how it could be applied to the Select Board.
And what you learned from it?
Who asked that question? I don't know why I should have known, but something I didn't do well. I think that my first approach to the matter of acquiring the semi-automatic rifles and the trade-in of the semi-automatic rifles by the police department might have been handled in a more, for lack of better terms, a more genteel way. It eventually made its way through to the Select Board, and we even got to the point where we are now destroying the surplus shotguns in town. But I think that in the initial outlay of my position, I could have handled that in a more rounded the corners of some of my questions.
Thank you. Heather?
Well, had I known that was coming, I would have saved I didn't say thank you at the very beginning for this question. That's just case in point number 1 of the fact that I make mistakes every single day. And the way that I approach those is when I've made a mistake, and in particular when I've made a mistake that harms someone else or an organization, I go to that person and I apologize. And I reflect on what led to that, and I figure out ways to avoid that in the future, and I figure out ways to make amends. So I see every single mistake that I make as a learning opportunity, and the way that I would bring that to the Select Board is, I'm going to put my foot in my mouth more than once, I'm sure. So bringing that humility to discussions and relationships with fellow Select Board members and community members, and bringing that attitude of constant growth, right? We will not always do everything perfectly. Everything that we don't do right is an opportunity for us to learn and grow.
Thank you. Tom?
Mine's pretty simple. Mine's information technology. Thank God I have 3 children who keep me square with that, and I continue to take classes, and yeah, every now and then they have to teach me how to put my computer on, but seriously, I do struggle with that. I've gotten better over the years, and I continue to take courses and learn from that, because it's important moving forward in 2024 and being up there on the Select Board and being a leader. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll start with you this time, Heather. What is your vision for the future of Falmouth?
My vision for the future of Falmouth is a thriving, diverse, resilient community where everyone who wishes to work and learn here can live and thrive here where my children and their children might want to come back and live, and where that would actually be an economic possibility for them. A place where our environment is healthy, our coastlines are healthy, and our community is healthy.
Thank you. Tom, same question.
My vision is we need to get better at with affordable housing. We do. Because what's happening is, like for instance, one of my children, she's out of state. She couldn't afford to be here. So that's an important issue for me, and I'm sure it's important for everybody as well. We're importing people to come work here, and we need to continue getting better, and I think our town is doing that. Our housing coordinator and all the other groups associated with housing in this town, because what's happening is second, third, and fourth generations are moving out of town, and you're not getting that hometown feel and that hometown charm when generations begin to move out. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Richard.
I can tell you what I don't want it to become. I don't want it to become a town of landed gentry. I don't want it to become a Nantucket. I lived on Nantucket for 6 years, and I can tell you that unless we're careful, we start walking that path towards being a Nantucket. I would venture a guess that most of the people in this room tonight own their homes. I would venture a guess that most of their children or grandchildren can't afford to buy your homes. That is the perfect scenario for creating a Nantucket. And unless we start really having serious conversations about housing that allows people to come in here, people that we need. We talk about policemen and firemen and nurses. We need carpenters and plumbers and electricians. We need doctors who are just out of residency who can't afford to live here. If we're not serious about affordable housing, and there are so many objections to affordable housing in this town, unless we're serious about it, we're going to wind up with a future where this is it. You look in this room, and this is going to be Falmouth of the future.
Thank you. All right, this time, since you mentioned affordable housing, this is a perfect follow-up question. And Tom, we're going to start with you. Please say something original and practical about solutions for affordable housing.
So,
Go ahead, Tom.
so something new. So I was actually looking up this. I looked at this on the internet last night. That I know we talk about deed restricting certain properties, so their rents can't be increased, or it's incrementally. But what I thought was really interesting is the thought on that is more so in these walking communities. And I think Falmouth, our Main Street, is a walking community. If we truly deed restrict some of our rents and keep people living there, what happens, we have that ripple effect. I know parking is a big issue. So now you have people walking to work. They are not having to move out of their apartments or their homes. And now you have, in addition, you have extra parking spaces. So to me, I thought that was an interesting concept as I read that on the internet last night.
Thank you. Richard?
We have to view affordable housing as sort of the three tines on a fork. We have to satisfy the developers. They're operating on a profit margin. They have to be satisfied. We have to concern ourselves with sewage. We have to concern ourselves with water quality. And last but not least, we have to concern ourselves with neighborhood profile. I can guarantee you that none of those three tines on that fork are going to be satisfied all the time. Either they're going to have to take less profit, either we're going to have to figure out other ways of perhaps including sewage that's going to increase real estate taxes. And secondly, as far as neighborhood characteristics are concerned, I've spoken to somebody just recently who was going to be looking at a 4-story building in his backyard, overlooking his pool. To get those three to work in synchronicity is the job of professionals. And unless we employ professionals in this town who are willing to talk to all three of those, we'll get nothing accomplished. Because we can't go in and say, we're going to satisfy the sewage, we're going to satisfy the neighborhood concept, but the developer, you're going to have to eat it. It's just not going to work that way. So it has to be a strongly coordinated effort on all projects dealing with affordable housing.
Thank you. Heather?
Okay, so going third makes original even harder. But it's coming after months, years of everyone in town also talking about this, right? So I guess I'm going to say that it's not my job to be original and have a completely new and different idea than everyone else. It's not my job to have the idea that will solve it all. It is the job of our leaders to gather all of those ideas, the expert input, and the community experiences to bring that together and foster conversations that can actually lead us to those pragmatic solutions that get us to the vision that we want for Falmouth. And so I guess my original idea is that we need to stop yelling at each other so much and actually sit down to the table and realize that here in Falmouth we have incredible resources, both financial and intellectual. If Falmouth can't solve a problem, I don't know who can, right? And that we actually, in a lot of cases, I think have a very similar vision. We're less divided than we think we are. And so we need to sit down at the table realizing that we all want a thriving community, and the job is to come together and have the conversations that will get us there.
I have two questions. I'm going to combine them because they're similar. So, Richard, we're going to start with you. And this is, how are the Eversource cables being installed on Mill Road different from the Vineyard Wind cables at the Heights in terms of accessibility to the town? And how would you have voted on the issue of Vineyard Wind cables landing in Falmouth Heights?
I would have voted, well, you're talking about a different subject, actually, because I was talking about the exploratory holes. I have no problem with the cables being installed. I just don't. I feel that we have to move forward, and I keep talking about the fact that sacrifices have to be made. There was and I'll do this really fast. There was one of my favorite movies, Inherit the Wind, and I don't know if any of you know about it. It's a Scove's monkey case where a man was sent to jail for teaching evolution. And this is all about progress. And it was a clash of two titans, Clarence Darrow and William Jennings Bryan. And Clarence Darrow said, I have a feeling that there's a man up at a counter somewhere who doles out progress. He says, sir, you can have the telephone, but you lose the charm of distance and you lose the right of privacy. Madam, you can have the boat, but you lose the right to hide behind the powder puff and the petticoat. Sir, you can conquer the air, but birds will lose their wonder and the clouds will smell of gasoline. We have to pay for progress. There's no two ways about it. 15 seconds. So my thought is, yes, I wish there were other methods, but we have to accept the reality of what is being offered to us. If we want to move forward, we have to pay for it.
Thank you. Heather?
So yeah, there's a lot of different issues embedded in that, right? There's the actual cables, there's the additional infrastructure associated with it, there's the difference in the environment between a neighborhood on Falmouth Heights and Mill Road. But fundamentally, as I've already said, we have to find ways to make offshore wind work for our larger region, for our grid, and for our community. And once again, I feel like in that discussion, we lost sight of that larger vision of what we share in terms of values and where we need to get to. And we got stuck in that yelling at each other, right? I want this, I don't want this is the wrong thing. And so we need to step back as a select board, as leaders in this community to say, this is the vision and where we need to get to. How do we have the conversations that can get us there? What are the actual fears and objections? How do we work with those, not ignore them, not override them? How do we work with those and come up with a functional solution? And I think the other issue is that not just in conversations within our town, but what I'm increasingly hearing from folks who work with the town on a number of fronts is that Falmouth is getting a reputation for being a difficult town to work with, and we're ending up in these very combative conversations with developers and folks of varying sorts. And so we need to work on that to be able to have those productive two-way conversations. That's not entirely on the town, though. And I would say in this case, we were not finding a partner for that conversation.
Thank you. Tom?
Well, first of all, I think renewable local energy is good. It brings jobs, low-cost renewable power. But for the good of energy, sometimes, I'm just going to leave it like this, you can't hurt one group to help another. And I know there are issues over there, and I think it just requires further discussion with neighbors and people who are working on the infrastructure. Just more conversation is required. Just going to leave everything on the table still. Thank you.
Heather, we'll start with you this time. Recently, Town Manager Mike Renshaw made the decision to destroy the town-owned police department's surplus shotguns. How do you feel about this decision and the possibility of future destruction of town-owned firearms?
Wow, and this one got to come to me first. But
Nothing to do with it.
you know, I think this is a case where a citizen group had a very strong opinion on the matter, made that case, and what we saw was our select board and our town staff working within the constraints that are set for us, the legal and other constraints, to find a way to accommodate that. You know, I feel strongly that we need, we first need to protect rights to legal gun ownership, and we need to make sure that we are keeping weapons that are intended to kill people out of our communities, and we need to strengthen the restrictions around the purchase and sale of guns. You know, whether or not those rifles would have ended up in those hands, I think is really impossible for us to say. But this was, I think, again, a case of our town government responding to a request made by our town citizens in a creative and respectful way.
Thank you. Tom?
I thought that was democracy at its best. And at the end of the day, it came down to a fiduciary responsibility by the town. And it was $4,500, and that needed to get funded, and it all worked out. Because at the end of the day, we want our first responders to have the best equipment. And by setting up that donation fund, that's going to work. Because that criminal element out there, they have the best equipment. So I remember that meeting, the chair said that we can always reapproach it if that group wanted to reapproach it. And again, that's democracy. And that's what this town's about. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard?
Well, I'm sure a lot of you here know that I was at the head of all the activity concerning these guns. There are approximately 130,000 firearms sold at retail in the state of Massachusetts every year. There's another 30,000 that pass through the gun portal. That's 160,000 weapons. This is a well-armed state. These weapons were of no use to anybody. The fact that they were traded in, wanted to be traded in, meant that they would wind up back in private circulation again. These were not going to other police forces. If you don't have a fear of weapons, you're operating under the guise of some fantasy. All weapons, every single weapon is capable of killing a human being. These weapons, these particular weapons, don't forget, 61% of deaths, firearm deaths in this country are suicides. It only takes one shot. You don't need assault weapons for that. I don't think that we are preventing anybody from purchasing a weapon by doing this, but there is nothing that says that we have to sell them that weapon. And by trading in weapons, that's basically what we're doing. We are giving weapons for value. That's a sale. I don't think Falmouth should be selling weapons at any time.
Thank you. We're going to move into closing statements now, and Tom, your turn to go first.
All right, thank you. Mindy, last week I was at a Q&A with the candidates similar to tonight's event, and I was asked a question that I couldn't answer, and I was honest. I simply stated that I didn't know. And I hope that makes me relatable to everyone here, because I can't know everything. But what I do know is this. If I'm asked a question any other time, I'll do my research, meet you for a cup of coffee, and we'll talk about the issue. This is how I make myself better every day, through conversations like these at local coffee shops. If elected, this is how I see my role on the select board. Talk to the public, listen to the experts, don't micromanage, and then make an informed decision. It's simple but effective. It's been a proven track record for me working this way and getting results for years. I'm a man of the people, and I find common sense solutions. I'll close with this. Serving on Falmouth Select Board allows me to continue giving back to the town that I love. And I would be truly honored if on May 21st, you get in line and vote for Zine. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard.
I actually wrote a closing statement here. In closing, let me say this. I have met one-on-one with both of my opponents. They are good people and they're capable people. I think the choice that's in front of you is the type of leadership you want for the future of Falmouth. The old guard, in my view, has let the town down on several occasions. I don't recognize or support any particular group or segment of Falmouth. My interests are in the town as a whole. I believe one of the most important responsibilities of a select person is to maintain a constant line of communication with all agencies and departments of the town. Throughout my campaign, I have focused on establishing these lines with the men and women whose sole concern is seeing that the town operates smoothly and safely. If elected to the board, I will make certain that these lines will always be maintained in direct contact with the board. The select board should always function as a team. I bring decades of experience in establishing and nurturing teams. From my time in the service through 35 years as a business owner, I hope I have done enough to earn your vote and allow me to serve you in the town of Falmouth. Thank you.
Thank you. Heather?
I came to Falmouth straight out of college for graduate school, and I haven't left since. I wasn't born here, but this is the place I have chosen to make my home. It is the only home my children have been, and I care deeply about Falmouth. We had a question earlier about what we do when we fail. It didn't ask how we define what failure is. And for me, failure is not about missing a deadline or not hitting a goal at work. It's when I don't show up and embody my values. So let me share with you my core values, which I call my ABCs. Abundance. Believe that there is enough. And here in Falmouth, we are blessed with abundance of resources, of creative, intelligent, educated people, incredible volunteers. Believe that there is enough and that there is a solution, and work to make it happen. Build things. It is really easy to tear things down, to criticize, but you have to be willing to get in there and actually build things and make solutions. Curiosity. Ask more questions than you answer in any conversation you come into, and always ask more questions until you feel like you actually have the right answer. Those are the values and the characteristics that I would bring to the select board. It would be my honor to serve this town, and I hope that I will have your vote. Since there are multiple early voting options as well, I will say on or before May 21st.
Richard Doobie, Heather Goldstone, and Thomas Zine are three candidates vying for that seat on the select board. Thank you all for being here.
I'm last, that's for sure.
I think I'm first.
Always last. Oh, wait.
Sure.
She's last? I guess I'm.
Just going to pause for a second here to be able to bring some more chairs in for some folks to sit.
Something you know about.
All right, everybody switch tags.
It's colder up here. I'm gonna be freezing.
There's people out here.
People can sit in our seats. Oh, yeah, that's true. We also have all the
Yeah,
candidates seating
take our
over there.
seats.
Got about 6 seats over here, if you want to have some seats over here as well.
Somebody want mine up here?
So nice to have a big crowd, huh? All right, whoever doesn't have a seat, come on in. We're in the front row.
Oh, yeah, we did it last year. I come every year. I love it.
Okay, are we all set? Felicia, are they bringing in more chairs, or are we good? We're good? Okay, all right. Up next is our candidates for school committee. They're gonna, it's three for a 3-year term. We have 4 candidates here. Thank you all for coming here. We have Glenda Cohen, Christopher Matthews, Katrina Nevin, and Kelly Welch. And we will start with the first question, and we'll start in alphabetical order again. Please detail contributions you believe you can make in your position on the school committee and how you approach situations where others you are working with disagree with you.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. It's an honor to participate in this forum. The way that I think I can contribute to the Falmouth School Committee is by drawing on my background and experience over 25 years in education. 17 of those years I was a public high school teacher, and currently I still work in education developing literacy curriculum for students K to 12. So I have a direct experience as an educator. Also, I consider myself an educator and an advocate, because every classroom teacher also needs to advocate for their students. And so I am very comfortable advocating for students, and very experienced in working with school committees and educational boards to advance the needs of my students. In terms of working with difficult circumstances, I feel that I'm collaborative. I listen, I analyze, and I also am a good team member. So those are the skills that I would bring to the position.
Thank you. Christopher,
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
why don't you pull your mic a little bit closer? Yeah, thanks.
Usually they tell me I'm too loud. I feel there's many contributions I can make. For starters, one character trait I possess is being a strong, dedicated leader. I'm a native of the town of Falmouth. I went through still active as a volunteer with Falmouth Public Schools. Because of this, I am knowledgeable of school system as an alumni, a parent, and a volunteer. I've built connections with staff. I've built connections with students and families. This background will allow me to make a fair and educated decision about policies, budgets, that will all benefit the community. As far as disagreements go, well, they can happen in any situation where people feel passionate about a topic. To face these disagreements, I feel it's best to take a person's view into consideration. By researching every point of a view, we'll be able to have the knowledge of the topic in all of its entirety, and having the knowledge of both sides of the topic would allow for a compromise to be made that would be beneficial to the whole school system and community.
Thank you. Katrina?
I'm really glad to be here, and I moved here 4 years ago, right before the pandemic began, and I'm really excited that I recognize so many faces out here. I'm like, yay, I did something right. I met the right people. As far as contributions, I think I have a lot of vision. I don't have as much experience in the school system as my fellow candidates, but I have a really strong vision, and the thing that I would love to contribute right away is a very beautiful vision for having a school garden curriculum at every school for every grade. This is fully possible. It's happened in Truro, it happened in Eastham, it happened all over the Martha's Vineyard schools. It's happening in the high school right now. That's my personal vision. I'm so excited about it. There's so much grant money available. I would love to contribute to that vision for the future. I also have a very diverse educational background myself, having gone to 4 public schools as a student, a charter school, a Waldorf school. I homeschooled briefly. Not all schools are made the same. You can have a wonderful experience or a terrible experience. You can have wonderful teachers. You can have bad teachers. I think the community around the school is really as important as anything else, and I would hope to bring in collaboration between people who are not necessarily involved. Our volunteer force out here in Falmouth is immense, and I have a lot of questions, and I think that's something I can contribute as well, a lot of curiosity.
Thank you. Kelly?
Thank you. Oh, froze closer. Thanks, of course, to the League for having us here tonight. It's always a pleasure to see so many people in attendance. So I think there are a couple of ways that I can contribute to the school committee. The first is that I've been doing it for a while, and so I have a lot of historical knowledge over the last 10 years. A lot of the things that we encounter, we have encountered before. And so having that perspective of where we've been and some of the things that we've been through, I think is really helpful. I am a parent of 2 kids who've finishing up their time at Falmouth Public Schools. My youngest will graduate this June, so I come to everything with that lens. And then the other thing is my professional experience. So I've spent the last 10 years working on healthcare disparities for marginalized groups. And so I think I see everything through that lens because of how long I've been doing that work. And so every time we approach something or a decision at the school committee, I am trying to imagine what that looks like for all the possible people that it'll impact. And some of those people and those groups are not always represented at the table. So I think that that's something that I bring. As far as disagreements among committee members or whenever I disagree with people, I think a lot of times it just comes from misunderstanding. So always really listening to try to figure out where the difference is coming from and seeing if there's space just by sharing information that can bring the 2 groups closer together.
Thank you. Christopher, we start with you this time. How would you go about recruiting and retaining a diverse faculty and staff in Falmouth schools? What actionable steps can we take to diversify Falmouth Public Schools, specifically the teaching staff?
Well, first off, we're very fortunate to have the teaching staff that we do. They are excellent educators. They are great mentors for our kids. If we want to keep that going, I think we need to show our other communities around us what we have to offer and what our educators are already offering to our students, because I think once they see what we have to offer, we're not going to have to show them anything more. They're going to want to come here because what they already see, because we already do have so many wonderful things going on.
Thank you. Katrina?
I think adding more to everything is always the answer, and trying to bring in new perspectives on the teaching staff. I don't know that many of the teachers, but the ones that I do know are just incredible, and I think a lot of them, like your daughter, I believe, came through the school system and are now teaching here. So I know housing's not a school committee issue, but the housing is something maybe there's funding for. I have a lot of questions, and there are certainly 1,000 ways to address this issue, and there's other communities that have the needs that we have, and modeling what we do off of other communities, I think is always the best step to not have to reinvent the wheel. If there's an example out there somewhere of how to bring in the best best school teachers and staff, we should look to that and find other examples and yeah.
Kelly?
So this is something we've been talking about for a really long time, and finding ways to bring diverse candidates to Falmouth and have the teaching staff and all of our staff reflect the student body. So we've been talking about it, and we've hit a lot of roadblocks along the way. But one of the things that, the most obvious, of course, is the housing issue and being able to recruit people who might be first-year students, or even as many as the fourth-year teachers. I'm sorry, who can afford to live here. One of the things we've done was increase the entry-level salary for new teachers so that they start at a higher amount here, which hopefully will help in the long run. And having Henry St. Julian in the diversity, equity, and belonging position, coming to this work of looking for new staff through a different lens and trying to figure out where do we need to be looking. Where do we need to engage with people who might be interested in these jobs? We can't just expect that they're going to find us or come to us and feel welcome here. We need to identify different places that we can engage with potential candidates and tell them that we want them. And thinking of different ways to engage in those, going to particular, oh gosh, it's such a short amount of time. But trying to think about it differently and the ways that we find our candidates.
Thank you. Glenda?
So I am absolutely committed to the importance of having a diverse teaching workforce because, as the other candidates have expressed, it's very important to have those staff members as role models for students. And I think Falmouth is off to an excellent start because it starts with leadership at the top. And I know that the superintendent expresses in written communication, in many of her messages, that she's committed to that vision of having a diverse faculty in the school system. I also had the opportunity to meet with Mr. St. Julian yesterday, and what an impressive, dynamic leader he is, and what an asset he is to the Falmouth school system. So I'm excited to see what he will continue to bring to his efforts to not only for the students but also with the faculty, and also, as panelists have said, it all comes back to housing, because if you can't afford to live here, we can't attract the candidates that we need.
Thank you. Katrina, we start with you this time. In regard to the use of strategic planning in your role on the school committee, how would you apply it to help establish school district goals?
Oh, jeez. I think it's helpful.
Pull your mic a little closer.
I think I'm not going to have the best answer at this table for that question because I'm new to this, and as somebody with two small children, I just don't have the wealth of background that you both all have. But I think it's helpful in anything like that to really zoom out and see what the big picture is. Take a 3-mile-high view, look at where you would like to be going. I forget the end of your question. I remember the beginning.
It was how you would apply it to the school district goals. Yeah.
Oh.
In regards to the use of strategic planning in your role on the school committee, how would you apply it to help establish school district goals?
I think any time that there's a chance to bring in a new perspective, if you're trying to have a goal and you want to get to it, you might not be able to take the straight path. And I think the temptation is to do what's been done in the past. I love to research things. My approach to anything is to ask a lot of questions and to try and come at it from a different angle. So I don't know if that's answering the question, but that's my approach to that.
Thank you. Kelly?
I'm not sure that I have a good answer either, and I've been doing this a long time. So I think it's important to first understand sort of how those strategic plans and those goals happen in the district. And they're not set just by the superintendent, they're not set just by the school committee. And then each individual school also has their individual goals, and those aren't set just by them. So all of this has to be a collaborative relationship where the superintendent is looking at data around how kids are doing in school and what's the makeup of the AP classes, and is everybody getting equal opportunities, or are the opportunities equitable, which is what we actually need. So taking that information from the superintendent and then having the school committee sit down, look at that information, hear what the superintendent thinks the priorities should maybe be, and then using our perspective as people who are completely outside of that system. We're connected to the community, we are parents, we know teachers, we know community members, and the lens that we bring to that conversation, and then putting all of those pieces together to try and figure out what the immediate goals are and what the long-term goals are. So that's, I don't know if that really answers the question, but that's sort of how we do it.
Yeah,
Or
thank
we
you.
should.
Thank you. Glenda?
So strategic planning is crucial to running any organization, and particularly in a school system, you have to project out what the future may be, not just what is now. And I'll give you a concrete example of that. So the student population that is in Falmouth now and the numbers of students that is in Falmouth now, that hopefully will not be what it is in 5 years, because if we get affordable housing, that will bring with it young families. So consequently, we have to plan for an influx of a student population. And so you can't plan just for today, you need to project out. And also, not just students in sheer numbers, but what are the what's the student profile going to bring in 5 years? Are we going to be educating the same kinds of students that we have today? And so it's vision, and it's projecting into the future.
Thank you. Christopher?
Okay, this is a tough one. I think a lot of people going into anything always think they have a plan. That's sometimes true, but I think the best thing they could do, especially when you talk about being diversified, is taking everybody's plan, trying to mash them all together so that we can come and narrow down the plans so that they may more meet our needs. You're 100% right. We can't think about just for now, just for today, just for tomorrow. We need to plan for the future. We need to come up with some plans with the housing, with the school, with the class sizes, with getting more teachers, getting more younger families in here. So coming up with plans to deal with all of those are what everybody is trying to do. I think we just all need to take, some time and listen to each other on what they think we could all come up with collectively, narrow it down, and then apply it to, a 1 year, 5 year, 10-year set of goals instead of a plan. Thank you.
We're going to move from league questions now to some audience questions. And Kelly, we start with you. Could you please explain what you feel can be done to help parents participate more fully in understanding the school curriculum and use of technology?
Okay. So I think this comes back to something I had mentioned earlier, is that whenever we're making decisions or talking about a topic, we need to be imagining all the people that thing impacts. And it's been easy thus far because I've been a parent of a kid in the district. That's going to shift next year when I don't, but it doesn't mean that that's not still a lens that I'll look at things through. So making sure that when we have educational sessions on curriculum or technology, that they're at times that parents can attend, and that there's translators there that can translate the material into Brazilian Portuguese so that people can understand it. That they're taped so that people who don't have childcare can watch it at their leisure or they're over Zoom. So there are a lot of small things, many of them that unfortunately came to be during COVID, that we can continue to do to make sure that access to curriculum information, technology information is more available to our families. And the other thing is to just go to where families are. So if you want to talk with them about something that's going on in the district, you know that they're going to be at parent pickup, they're going to be at the book fair, they're going to be at sporting events, and having information or welcoming them to attend other sessions at those venues would be great.
Thank you. Glinda?
I agree with everything that Kelly just said, particularly the language support, meeting families where they are. I know that the district has forums, educational forums on a variety of topics. I think that that's wonderful. Increasing parental participation, because it really is helpful to have a discussion. It's helpful for the leadership of the school district to hear community concerns. So I think that those kinds of forums and encouraging more participation is crucial. Also, it would be interesting to look at different ways technology can be harnessed to communicate. There's something called ConnectEd, which is a phone system that calls when there's weather-related issues or things like that. Email. So using technology to its fullest to try to connect with parents, because parents work, they're busy. They don't always have time to plug in the traditional ways. So.
Thank you. Christopher?
Thank you. I know even as new as this year, we had a lot of new curriculum that our teachers had to start teaching, new math programs they had to learn, which is great. We need to keep strengthening our curriculum so that our kids keep progressing. And I know all of our teachers across the board have gone to classes after school, they have meetings, they get all this tech time on learning all the new tech, all the new curriculum. But as you two have already said, there hasn't been as much communication or availability of the teaching to the parents, who are going to be the ones at home going, Mom, Dad, how do I do this? Grandma, how do I do this? They don't know. We're using tech here tonight. I mean, we have cameras in the back of the room that are broadcasting everywhere to the town. There is a possibility, I'm sure there is, that we could do a Zoom class or something that parents could log in, YouTube, anything like that. Hey, this is our new such and such curriculum for English. Can we put this out there? You can log in, here's the page, sending home reminders of this is going to be at this time. Please log on. It's going to be on for the next week. If you don't have time tonight, maybe another time. And that would make it a lot easier so that everybody understands across the board.
Thank you. Katrina?
Can you just repeat the question?
Sure, absolutely. It says, could you please explain what you feel can be done to help parents participate more fully in understanding the school curriculum and the use of technology?
Okay. I have 2 small children. I know that the conversations that happen at pickup, the word of mouth, talking directly to someone, is probably the most effective way to communicate with a parent, because your child is not going to bring a pamphlet home reliably in their backpack. I don't always get the time to check my email every day. Getting on a Zoom call at bedtime is a miserable experience. So having feet on the ground for me, being able to just have a conversation, I learn almost everything I need to know, either from talking to someone in person or having it relayed to me by text or email. I don't know if that's the case for every parent, but again, the thing with having meetings at times that are accessible, having a translator there, having it geared to the parents. If you want to communicate with the parents, you need to really make it very easy. So yes, in person and trying to make it as uncomplicated as possible. A lot of forums and Zoom calls are overwhelming in a lifestyle where you're driving your kids around and dropping them off and picking them up, and it's hard to always understand what's going on. And when people don't understand what's happening, I hear a lot of negative feedback or people complaining about things because they don't understand it. Why is this happening? Or your kids are relaying it to you, and that's not reliable information half the time. Like, oh, we do all of our math on the screen. mean, I hate it, you know. So having a conversation face to face is really, in my opinion, the best way to relay anything to a parent.
Thank you. All right. Another audience question. Glenda, we start with you. Can you tell me something you failed at and what you learned from it, and could you apply it to the committee?
Well, I'm sure my 3 daughters would be eager to respond to that question. I'm sure they have a long list. I will say, and I don't know if I would exactly term it a failure. I would term it as a growth experience. My first year as a teacher, I was terrible. And I think it's rare that a first-year teacher is actually good. It's a job, a profession that you have to grow into. My second year, I was a little better. My third year, I was a little better. By my fourth year, I had my stuff down, and when I ended my career, I was an exemplary teacher. So I say that because it's important for children also to know that you are probably not going to be good at something the first time you try it. You might be terrible at it. But hopefully I won't be terrible at the school committee. I hope my learning curve is much shorter than it was as a teacher. But I am persistent. I will stick to something. And I think that that's an important message for us to convey to our children.
Thank you. Christopher?
Is this my opinion or my wife's? I would say, if I had to pick something that I probably did more so younger poorly, was time management. When you're young, you think you have all the time in the world. Don't worry about that. We'll do it later. We'll do it later. You don't always have later. You don't always have the time to do that because life happens, things happen. You got to pick up a kid at a sport and you forgot. You didn't go grocery shopping. Oh my God. But, you know, you learn quick that you can't do that, especially I own my own business. I need to have good time management. I have 2 kids. They're adult children now. I still need to manage time to do things with them, do things with my wife, do things with my dogs, and still be able to have a life. Now that I'm older, I've learned how to do that. I have more time now, which brings me here with all of these people, so I can put my time into helping and teaching others time management so they don't make that same mistake that I did when I was younger.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Katrina?
I think in a similar vein, saying yes to too many things. My first time on a board was a community theater organization. I sat on the board for several years, and I didn't really get that involved because I wasn't sure. I mean, I was involved in all the productions, but I wasn't sure exactly when to put my foot in and how much to say. The second time I was on a board organization was Farming Falmouth, which I've been on for the last 4 years since moving here. And I was so excited that I said yes to too many things. And then I couldn't follow through on all of them, and I felt like I was letting people down. So I've learned through those experiences that you have to be involved and say what you want to when you need to, but don't say you're going to do something unless you know that you're actually going to be able to do it. Having small children has also taught me that there's just not as much time in the day as the things that I would like to do, and the ideas in my head are so many that I get a little too excited at times. So reining it in while also injecting myself when it's actually appropriate and necessary, and not being afraid to have a voice and an opinion at the right time.
Thank you. Kelly?
So very similar to Heather Goldstone's comment. I don't really see a lot of failure. I don't feel regret. I very much take everything that I have messed up, which there are plenty of things, as an opportunity to get better at something. And so I tend to face those things straight on, but I'll share a story anyway. So my daughter, when she was very young, had really, really poor vision, to the point that her brain started to shut off the vision signaling, and she was about to go blind. And I didn't wear glasses, and no one in our family wore glasses, and I had no idea. She reminds me of this all the time. And so things like, do you see the boat? No, I don't see the boat. Yes, you do. It's right there. Do you see the bird in the tree? No, I don't. Why are you so close to the television? And they were ongoing things that happened all the time for the first, 3 years until we really realized what was going on. And I constantly think about things like that. What am I not seeing? What do I not know that would make this picture more clear? Why does she act this way in these situations? And I think I constantly do that now, trying to figure out what piece of information I don't have that's completely clouding everything. So that's certainly one. She's probably going to be so mad if I told that story.
Thank you. We're going to move to closing comments now, and Christopher, your turn to go first.
All right, thank you. In closing, a lot of you don't know me. I was born and raised in this town. My wife and kids are also natives. I feel I've shown my dedication and leadership within Falmouth Public Schools in multiple ways. I was the East Falmouth Elementary PTO president for 3 consecutive years. I volunteered on multiple field trips, school plays, after proms. I've DJ'd many school dances and events. I maintained the girls' field hockey and lacrosse field for 5 years, gaining the VIPS Volunteer of the Year in 2017. And given the opportunity, I think I will be a strong, dedicated leader, a role model for the community, and a person of support for the town of Falmouth. I'll be trustworthy, a set of ears for the town of Falmouth can voice their express and concerns to me. My determination to succeed will go unmatched. I will prove to everybody that they voted for the most qualified and passionate candidate for this position. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you. Katrina.
As a relative newcomer to town, I think I come with an unbiased and open perspective. I don't have any of the history of what's happened in the past. All I have is a vision for the future. And because I have these small children, I will have an opportunity every single day to talk to the people at the school, the kids, the parents, the teachers, and hear the feedback that you don't necessarily get at a public forum or anywhere else. You just get it when people are complaining and griping in a parking lot. So that's something I can really bring, and I have a lot of passion and a really strong vision, but I don't have all the answers. I think I've made it clear tonight that I don't, strategic planning is not something I have a huge amount of experience with. But I've been on these boards. Farming Falmouth has taught me a lot, and I started a gleaning program for them, so I've been involved with the volunteers. We've donated more than 10,000 pounds of vegetables to the Falmouth Service Center in the past 4 years, and that's something I created. So I know that I can make an impact, and I can really change things for the better, and I have a lot of ideas. So with a lot of ideas and a lot of questions, I hope I will be useful.
Thank you. Kelly?
So thank you again to the League and for hosting this, and to FCTV. And I also want to give a shout out to the Enterprise. We are really lucky to have so many options and ways that the community can learn about elections that are coming up, and we would not have an informed electorate if it wasn't for all of these wonderful organizations. And thank you also to everyone who's voted for me 4 times before. I'm so honored to have been able to do this for such a long time. I'm really, truly grateful for that opportunity. I'm proud of a lot of the progress that we've made over the time that I've been on the committee. Some things that you see and some things that you don't see. So work on equity, work on sustainability in our buildings, moving away from plastics, and then the things you can see, like the new stadium, the track. You don't really see the roofs, but we're really glad we have them. And a lot of that work, I'm just very proud of all of that, all that we've done. I also truly believe in education, and if you believe in education, then you have to believe that there's possibility for improvement, and you can both believe that the schools are fabulous and that we can get better. And I hope to have the opportunity to return to the committee for another 3 years to bring new ideas. I still have places that I'd like us to go, and I look forward to serving another 3 years.
Thank you. Glenda?
So thank you to the League for hosting this important event, and thank you to my fellow candidates for participating in this race. These are very challenging times for schools, students, and families. But there is good news, and sometimes it takes a fresh set of eyes to see things that others might take for granted. The VIPS program, the Falmouth Education Foundation, experiential learning programs with Woods Hole and MBL, a proposed pre-K program, an after-prom event. I could keep going. But these programs and many others like them are things that not every school system has. They are unique to Falmouth and show how much our children are valued by the adults around them. I want to be a member of the school committee to help make a strong school system even stronger. I also want to help the district meet the challenges of today and tomorrow. I feel that it's important not simply to ask for your vote, but to earn your vote. To that end, I've attended precinct meetings, school committee meetings, and met with parents and community members. So I hope that my efforts, along with my background as a longtime public school educator, show you that I am well prepared and enthusiastic to serve our Falmouth Clippers on the school committee. I humbly ask for your vote on May 21st. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Glenda Cohen, Christopher Matthews, Katrina Nevins, Kelly Welch. 3 will be elected to the school committee. Thank you all. And I believe we have some folks who are uncontested. If anybody that's uncontested wanted to come up real quick and just introduce yourself and say something quick, come on up. Right here. Oh, no, go here. No, go right here. Let's see you better here. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Charlotte Harris. I serve on the planning board, running uncontested, so this isn't a really surprise election for me, but I'm glad to be there. I feel that we're a strong team. Here's another member of the team, also uncontested. And the one thing I did actually want to use this opportunity to say, right now we're holding public hearings on short-term rentals. It's a problem. They're eating our rental stock here in town. We need to bring it in hand, but the question is how to do it fairly. If you think that you have some good ideas along this line, May 28th will be our next hearing. Our first hearing was last night. The turnout was pretty good, but not great. But I know that it's of concern to a number of people. So if you want to participate, please take that opportunity.
Thank you.
Sure. Hi, my name's Bob Leary. I'm running for planning board unopposed for a 3-year term. I've been on the board for 15 years. And affordable housing is a big issue in this town. I mean, it was a lot of talk tonight. I've been a construction supervisor for Habitat for Humanity for 30 years now. You're probably familiar with the Willett Way project we just finished. So affordable housing is nothing new to me. I brought that perspective to the planning board, and when I was one of the co-authors of the local comprehensive plan, we looked at some of the low-hanging fruit. Some of that was the accessory apartment bylaw, which has been very successful. We see 2 or 3 a month, I think, coming in to put accessory units on their property. We just passed the change to the conversion bylaw at the last town meeting, which updates the year that an existing house could be changed over to have more units. We have the Mr. Todd, whose acronym I can never remember, but the planning board has stressed that when we have development, that if it's a business zone, that we have a housing above it. We also stress walkability, closeness to the village centers. So the planning board has done a lot of stuff towards housing in town that kind of goes under the radar. And so if you really want to support affordable housing, you really need to come to some of our meetings, look at the local comprehensive plan, and see what we are doing. I just have to kind of say one thing too. We have people that really look outside work outside the box when it comes to housing, and Mike Galasso was one of them. And I'm sure if most of you are familiar with the project that he wants to put on Main Street, and what's holding that up is parking. I think it's an outrage that we're holding up a project just because of parking. Falmouth is way overparked. That's something that we're looking at. That's another thing that we're going to look at on the planning board. We need to do something about that issue. Transportation goes hand in hand with housing as well. We need to do something better with our transportation system. And there are other issues that we could help solve.
Get in the hook.
Okay. Thank you. Good night.
Madison Earls, and I'm running for trustee for the library. I've been here in Falmouth for 52 years. I wasn't born here, but my kids were. I'm looking forward to working with the board, and libraries are so important. Thank you.
That's it for our uncontested candidates. Thank you all for being here this evening. Appreciate it. Thank you. It's okay.